I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close this afternoon on a cool February day here in central Iowa. Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm, a big part of our coverage throughout the men's basketball season. Give Brad a call first thing Monday morning for an absolutely free quote on insurance. 515-256-6480 and very competitive rates is what I'm told by Brad and his team on homeowners, which is everybody needs homeowners. We've found that out in recent years if you didn't already know. Again, give Brad a call, 515-256-6480, or visit him online at www.bradvanmeter.com. You can also check out the office in person, 4229 Fleur Drive, if you're down in Des Moines. Again, that's Brad Van Meter and his State Farm team in Des Moines. We also want to take a moment to thank RTI Threads, and I plugged this the other day, but if you are looking forward to the big game, I know my stellar co-host is, as a big Eagles fan, Gary Close is. We talk about the big Super Bowl Sunday coming up in just a moment, but of course it's Super Bowl week, so you can celebrate with our sponsor, RTI Threads. They've got a partnership with none other than starting DB Cooper DeJean. Purchase your Coop shirt, your Cooper DeJean Eagles shirt, via his official store, cd3-store.1rti. I know that's maybe more complicated than you want, so we threw it up in the description. Click the link in the description below, and you can be linked directly to his store. Click on men's apparel, and you'll find the Cooper DeJean Eagles shirt in preparation for tomorrow's big Eagles game. Again, that's RTI Threads and cd3-store.1rti.com. Well, without further ado, we welcome Mr. Gary Close into our broadcast. Gary, it's
Well,
always good to see you as we count down the days to March, regardless of where the Iowa men's basketball team is doing. Welcome back.
good to be back. Thank you.
So I know fans are always eager to hear from you whenever, not just whenever Iowa plays, but I think especially when the Hawkeyes play the Badgers, because you have such strong ties to both of these really storied programs. And this is a Wisconsin team that has really evolved this year, their identity. And I want to talk to you about this now that we've seen a larger sample size as opposed to early in Big Ten play. But honestly, this is sort of the same story in my mind that we saw Iowa's game against Purdue the other day. Strong first half. Iowa probably should have been leading Purdue the other night if it wasn't for a late 5-point flurry for Braden Smith and the Boilers. Similar today, Iowa actually heads into the locker room with a 2-point lead. And in the second half, I mean, my evaluation really comes down to one big stat, and it's rebounding. Just too many second chance opportunities for the Badgers. Where did this thing get away, and how impactful is this loss?
Well, I agree with you. I thought, I don't think you can fault their effort in either game. I thought they really battled. They're obviously a little bit depleted with some injuries. I think they had a chance to have a bigger lead at halftime. I think Wisconsin was a little off their game in that first half, especially defensively. And if they could have built a bigger lead, then it might have been a little different coming down the stretch. And Wisconsin played much better in the second half, especially defensively. And I think that was the difference. I think they forced Iowa into much tougher shots than what Iowa did to them. And a day that they might have got them. I thought Wisconsin was ripe to get beat today. They just couldn't get enough stops or get enough scores to put them over the top.
Josh Dix went for 13, although, boy, he had a flurry early and then quieted down. Was it something Wisconsin did defensively on him from a matchup standpoint that caused him problems offensively down the stretch?
I think they just played better team defense all the way around in the second half. Their ball pressure was much better. They did a better job of containing the ball. If you think back on that second half, now they missed a few layups that are close-in shots that they really needed, but there weren't very many easy shots in the second half, especially from three. I don't remember a wide open three, and they might have had one or two, but I think that was the big difference. Whereas at Wisconsin's end, there was just a lot of open threes, and it was a night where they weren't making them at the normal clip that they do, and that's why I thought they might have a chance to beat them, but they made enough that that they survived.
What did you think of officiating today?
I thought it was up and down. Yeah, I didn't think it was great. I don't know if it decided the game, but I thought there were a few that they definitely missed.
Do you think Big Ten officiating this year has been better or noticeably worse, or about the same to what you've seen?
Yeah, I probably really haven't paid enough attention to. I'd probably say about the same. I don't.
Okay.
I'd be guessing if I said anything different.
Well, I texted you during that second half. That was one of the worst backcourt violation calls I've ever seen. I don't even understand where the official gets off blowing the whistle. I don't even. It wasn't even close.
No, it wasn't.
So that one's going to stand out, and I tweeted about that when it happened, and frustrating nonetheless. You hold Wisconsin to this is a Wisconsin team that, as you and I both know, Gary, they lit it up against Iowa up in Madison. And if you had told me heading into this game that Iowa would hold them to 39% from the field and they'd only get out rebounded by 4, I'd have probably told you Iowa wins.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. That's why I think they had a chance. They get a little better lead in the first half, shoot a little bit better, finish around the rim a little bit better. They do have a chance to win. And they had a chance even right up until the last few minutes. So just got very few easy baskets in the second half.
And again, the stats don't show this for the game because I thought Iowa really competed on the glass in that first half. I was impressed with Seydou Traore. He gave them at least 4. I have to go back and look at the official box score here in a second. But he gave them at least 4 rebounds in that first half. For a guy who his per 40 numbers are his efficiency on the glass at Manhattan was stellar as a freshman, and you're looking for that to translate at a much more difficult, competitive, physical level in the Big Ten, and you hope that it still will. I want to ask you about Traore because Bob in the chat brings up his improvement, and I agree. His improvement, I think, for one thing, is manifested through more time on the court. The biggest thing he can offer, in my mind, is rebounding and defense, specifically his athleticism, what he can use as shot blocker, rim protector, and also just his ability to move his feet, which I think some guys struggle to defend in the perimeter and they allow too much penetration and the defense collapses, etc. But he takes so many bad shots. I mean, we talk about Peyton Sandfort taking bad shots. Am I wrong in saying that Seydou Traore just, I know he's got the green light and you love that about Fran, but the turnover numbers, like everybody talks about how Iowa protects the ball. And that is one thing that you have to admit, they don't turn the ball over, but isn't in essence a bad early shot or a poor shot selection? Isn't that in essence a turnover if you can't get on the glass?
It's close. I mean, there's doubt. You'd rather get a shot up and hopes he gets in or get an offensive rebound. But his shot selection is a little questionable at times, no doubt. And they really lack a guy that can finish around the basket and draw fouls and score. They missed a bunch of chippy shots inside that they don't get fouled, and they just kind of throw up flippy, tough shots that's exactly what Wisconsin wants you to do, and they're disciplined enough that they don't foul, and those are lower percentage shots than they look, with a couple of exceptions.
How disappointing is it if you're Iowa after some of what happened up in Madison? You give up a $116 in a historic loss in the Kohl Center, and then the statements made afterwards by a bench player about how, hey, we knew Iowa didn't want to play defense. That had to be motivating today. And I think Iowa played better defense in that first half, but yeah, I said after the Owen Freeman news, Gary, I'll say that, and I don't normally come out and make a prediction like this, but they were 4-6 when that news came out. And I made this statement. I said, I think they're done because the schedule, first of all, they don't have any quality wins. That's 1A. And then 1B is I don't know who's going to give them an interior threat offensively. And I'll give them credit, Gary. You and I haven't really talked since that happened, but they have fought these last two games more than I anticipated. You got to give them credit for that. Talk about the efforts from Bronze, Mulvey, and even Dembele in stretches to try to figure out a way to account for the loss that was Owen Freeman.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. You can't question their effort. They've played hard, and they played two of the better teams in the Big Ten and had a chance to beat them both. Undermanned, and so that's to their credit. They're in a tough situation because they just don't have enough weapons to offset the inability to get consistent stops. So I think for them to win, they got to make 12, 13, 14, 15 threes. I think that's the way they're going to have to win. And Wisconsin played good enough defense on the perimeter to not allow them to get many open looks, and so they probably made 8 or 9 today, and that's not enough to beat that team.
I know we can talk big picture here in a minute, folks. If you want a word with Coach Close, we're not going to be on a real long time today, so if you want a word, be sure you call in. The number I'll throw it up on the bottom of the screen: 515-635-1601, or you can click the StreamYard link in our description. I also threw it up in the live chat for those who are hanging out in our live chat here on this Saturday afternoon. Hey, it's Super Bowl Eve, Gary.
Yeah, I know. Can't wait.
How this is the second straight year, right, where you get to throw a Super Bowl party.
Well, 2 of the last 3 years.
What was last year?
Last year we collapsed.
Yeah, but what was last year? Who was in the Super Bowl last year?
Chiefs and the Niners, I think.
My goodness, my brain does not.
2 years ago was the Eagles and the Chiefs.
My brain doesn't work like it used to. Okay, 2 years ago you were throwing a party, and there was some bad officiating in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there was. Yes, there was.
And you and I both know the narrative around
the field was a mess.
The field was a mess.
Yeah,
the narrative around this Chiefs team. You and I both know what it is right now. It's that somehow the officials are favoring Kansas City. Do you buy into that at all? As you watch,
not really. I mean, I think they're professional enough that I don't know if I go that far, but I do think that Mahomes has got a knack of drawing fouls, kind of like a basketball player. He knows when to flop at the right time, and I think he gets some calls that other quarterbacks don't get. I'll put it that way.
How big is the Taylor Swift, Caitlin Clark factor in this one?
No factor at all.
I had to ask you, Gary, right? All right, let's go to our phone line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
John.
Hey, John.
If you guys are in charge of the NIL rules and regulations, what would the NIL look like?
That's a really good question. I'm not real versed on all the rules and regulations there are now, but I think what might have to be a possibility is have some kind of a salary cap, so to speak, where everybody's got somewhat of a level field rather than some programs having so much more money than some other program. Now, whether they can do that legally, I don't know. But off the top of my head, that would be my first thought.
John, the one thing people don't realize, and I'm not necessarily including you in this, but keep in mind here in a few months, the Big Ten will begin revenue sharing. That's going to change things. So my understanding of as how I've been informed as it relates to Big Ten institutions is revenue sharing is designed to eliminate the unfair practice of buying players. So all Big Ten schools are now supposed to be operating on an even budget per revenue sharing. And then all $600 plus deals are supposed to be approved by an NCAA approval committee. That's the way I understand this new thing to work. So we'll see what that means. I mean, there's always been dirty money, right, Gary? There's always been that as long as we've had competitive college basketball. But it will be interesting to see how it's impacted in this conference. And does it set the conference back? I think the concept is good. But if everybody else is just playing with freewheeling money,
so players, this is just in the Big Ten?
The Big Ten Conference. So, again, this is something I think we're all I know very little about it other than what I just shared, John, but that's my understanding of because there's been a lot of conversations about some of the athletes Iowa has attempted to bring in and is bringing in the portal this season on the football field. So revenue sharing is going to change that look a little bit. I'm just anxious to see how even it is across the board, if it's not even across the board as it relates to rules.
So how does that relate to the NIL?
Well, like I said, the only thing it relates to is I don't believe a player can receive anything over $600 has to be approved through an NCAA committee. I don't quite understand that, because if it's through the Big Ten, I don't know why. I really don't know how that functions through the conference and the NCAA approval committee or whoever is it that's giving the green light on deals over $600. But it's supposed to be designed to eliminate collectives being able to go out and say, okay, we'll pay you $2 million to come play for us out of the portal. But again, I would think if it's just the conference, then it's setting the conference back in a sense, unless everybody's on board to do this. And I think that's been the issue with all of this is people that we don't have confidence in the NCAA being willing to step up and regulate, or do they have the power to step up and regulate because of the legalities behind how all this started. So it's going to be a fascinating offseason conversation, John, because there's a lot we don't know, and we'll see if it works.
Times an athlete can transfer?
Say that again. You cut out.
I'm sorry. Would you limit the number of times an athlete can transfer or go in the portal?
Well, that's up to the NCAA.
Yeah, I'm not sure they can anymore legally, but I would eliminate transferring within the conference. I think if they're going to transfer, they ought to transfer out of the conference. But
yeah, what I was told is June 30th is in my notes. June 30th. So this current system of NIL in this conference is supposed to stop July 1st, and then the new system has to go to an NCAA approval panel at that point for deals over $600. So, and it's supposed to be
$600. I don't get that.
I mean, isn't that the threshold for reporting 1099, submitting 1099s to the IRS? I don't know if that has something to do with it or if that's just a threshold that the conference set.
So if something so you can't offer a kid $1 million, but you got to get approval of it, and how do they decide?
Yeah, those are all questions we don't have. I don't know.
So we're even more confused.
Yeah, I know that the schools are. This is stuff that the schools have been working on for quite a while. So I would think, but that we probably have more questions than answers right now, frankly.
If somebody transfers, if they were in school for 4 years and they've transferred 3 times, doesn't that say more about the athlete than the universities?
Possibly, yeah. I would say that there's a good chance of that. It's like the Tanjay kid. He's transferred 3 times. He seems like a real good kid. He left Colorado State to go to a higher level program, which I get. It's hard to fault that. And then he wasn't playing at Missouri. And so I want to go play someplace and play my last year. And so he transfers to Wisconsin, and he's had an unbelievable year. So, and all indications, he's a real good kid. He just needed a different opportunity. So, but in some cases it's a red flag that, somebody's constantly looking for something better and not looking at themselves in the mirror.
Why? Can I ask you this real quick? Why is Peyton Sandfort defending Tanjay down the stretch of this game? Am I wrong, or was that matchup the matchup that Iowa rode throughout the latter part of that second half? Wisconsin's best player, and you got Peyton Sandfort.
Well, they do a lot of switching, so I don't know if it was that way, but that would not be. That's not a good matchup, obviously.
No. And there were I just want to say this. There were a couple killer fouls on Peyton Sandfort in those last 4 minutes where he's not moving his feet. The one where they advance the ball past pressure and he just foolishly bumps him. He's a 92% free throw shooter. So you're just giving the guy, they're in the bonus. You're giving the opposing team 2 points when you desperately need to get a clean stop.
Well, and when they drove to the basket, they're constantly trying to block shots and whack balls out of people's hands. And that's, even if you get it clean, oftentimes it's called a foul. The one time, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Peyton, went in with 2 hands and just grabbed the ball out of the Wisconsin players. That's how you do it. You don't go in there and just whack with 1 hand. That's going to get called all the time. And even if you get it clean, most of the time it's going to get called. You got to slide over and use your body, and it drives you crazy. Or they're fouling around the basket, and that team's a 85% free throw shooting team. You're just handing them points. So they did a good job in the first half of not doing that. In the second half, they didn't.
One other question I want to ask you, Gary, because this is a conversation we had. I discussed it after the Purdue game. How do you explain a team like Iowa who shoots the ball? They have shooters everywhere. And in some people's minds, that's part of the problem because Franz built this team with shooters. That's what they do, and they really don't defend. But then they don't shoot free throws well. They're bottom of the Big Ten in free throw shooting. Like Price Sandford shooting 60% from the foul line. How do you explain that? I don't know that I've ever seen it.
It's a different animal. It's a different animal. I've seen that before. That's a little bit of a wider disparity, but yeah, that'll drive you crazy. But free throw shooting is it sounds crazy. It's not as easy as it looks for some people. But Wisconsin's got a chance to break the all-time record. So the first thing on your scouting report is don't foul them, don't get into penalty, because if you foul them, then they're going to make 8.5 out of every 10 free throws they take.
And real quick illustration of the free throw struggles for this team: only one player shooting 80% or more, and that's Peyton Sandfort. And then only 2 players shooting in the 70th percentile, and that's Josh Dix, Brock Harding. Thelwell shooting 66%. Traore 61%. Price Sandfort 61%. Freeman 60%. Dembele 56%. And so it's hard to overcome below average defense and below average rebounding at a minimum if you can't shoot free throws. I mean, in a close game, a tight game, both teams in the bonus. In this case, both teams, you can't have a biggest disparity. You have the worst team in the Big Ten as it relates to free throw shooting and the best team. And it starts with Tanjay, and they put them at the line too many times in the stretch when they needed stops.
But when you look at those percentages, with the exception of maybe Bryce Sanford, those ones that are in the low 70s and 60s, I would not describe as great shooters.
Well, no, I mean, not great shooters, but 60%. I mean, like,
no, that's not good. But I would say they're not. They're not great. None of those are great shooters. And maybe some of them aren't even good.
But Gary, Bryce Sanford should be shooting at least 80%.
Yeah, that was the one exception. He should be. But how many free throws has he shot on the year?
That's a good question. How many free throws has Price has shot? It's a great question. I'll pull that up in a second. Yeah. You got anything else, John? I'm gonna look for this stat.
Nope. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for the call.
Yeah, and he missed a big one down the stretch today. And Josh Dix has missed big ones. Thelwell has missed big ones. Now Thelwell should be a better free throw shooter as well. He should be a little better. Yeah, I agree. He's a good 3-point shooter, and he's the one guy. I will say this: if there's one guy who maybe goes against the grain of what you said earlier, that this team struggles to attack, finish, draw fouls, he does that probably as good as anybody. Can you agree on that?
I think he attacks. I think he still needs work finishing and making plays. I can remember he missed a couple. Harding missed a couple point blank layups that you gotta make. I mean, against a team like that, if you're going to upset them, you got to make those. You just can't miss those because you're not going to get very many of them. So, yeah.
Okay, folks, our player of the game, our RTI Threads player of the game is Josh Dix, 13 points. Although the efficiency went by the wayside down the stretch, he did make 3 of his 6 3-point tries, 5 rebounds, a pair of assists for the RTI athlete. You can check out his apparel line over at rtithreads.com/NIL. Again, Josh Dix, our RTI Threads player of the game. What makes him so good, Gary? Because his efficiency for the season is so impressive. He may be the best pro prospect on this team right now just because of how solid he is basically everywhere.
He's a really good player. And if he had some more weapons around him, I think he'd just be that much better. I mean, teams are just going to really key on him now because he is one of their best players. So he's under control. He can make shots. He's got a lot of game to him. I like him a lot.
Bryce Sanford has shot, not counting today, 28 free throws. He's 17 of 28 from the foul line on the season. And for the record, he only shot 6 last year and made 4 of them. So he's like 67% last year.
Yeah. So I think you need to get a bigger sample size to really see how good he is. But
part of the problem is the Sanfords don't attack enough. I think Bryce does more than Peyton, but they're not good enough off the dribble.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. Yep.
All right, let's go to our next caller, Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Shane, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. Coach Corey.
Hi, Shane.
I got a couple of comments and then a theoretical, futuristic question to ask you guys. The comments are, I do really like the lineup. If we played average defense, or if the guys just was pure average out of all the teams in Division I, would it be a far-fetched thing to say that they could be a 17-5 or 16-6 team right now instead of 13-10? Or do you think the problems are much more deeply rooted than just defense?
That's a real good question. I think with Freeman out, obviously it makes it a lot more difficult. You can't lose your leading scorer and leading rebounder, and not, especially when you don't have a whole lot behind him to pick it up. But if he's there, then possibly, yeah.
I think they're deeply rooted in defense, and and rebounding is part of defense, right, Gary?
Sure.
You don't finish defending until you finish on the glass. I mean, I don't know how. Listen, here's the thing, Shane. That's like, I appreciate the question, but it's almost like asking me to play like a virtual reality game because they're not built like they don't have. Part of the problem is they have guys who, I hate to say this, I think it goes beyond. Part of it's coaching. Gary, you would say probably a majority of it's coaching, but like Peyton Sanford, one of the plays in that second half where Tanjay just runs right by him, he can't move his feet fast enough. So like that's part of the problem when you're riding a guy like Peyton because you love what he gives you from the outside, but he's way below average on defense, and he really doesn't do much other than launch shots. I mean, he's 1 of 7 from 3 today. We've talked about his shot selection, so it's hard for me to even imagine what you're talking about. Now, if there was a defensive-minded coach that came in here, I'm sure they could make Peyton a decent defender. I mean, Gary, I've used the examples, and I know you have argued with me, and you say, hey, some of these guys for Wisconsin were great athletes, but like some of those guys at Wisconsin, Gosser, Ben Brust, like I go down the list of guys probably weren't very good defensively. And I know a lot of guys aren't good when they come into college initially, but you work on fundamentals enough to where they can overcome lack of athleticism and lateral quickness, right?
Yeah. You learn how to play angles and use your body and get down lower and close out under control. Don't leave your feet. Things like that to where you're never going to be able to stop a guy flat dead, but you don't want to just get beat point blank to where it's just a straight line drive. And they get beat on straight line drives way too much. And that's hard to stop. And so your ability to kind of fan them out, like, if they're driving to the top of the fan them towards the corner, not straight down the lane line, is huge. And that doesn't require a ton of quickness. That's just understanding which angles and anticipation, things like that. So,
Would you agree though? I mean, I see the same thing. It just doesn't seem like we have a lot of foot speed on defense. And if everybody could agree to that as a coach, would you not tend to play more zone at that point to try to avoid people just blowing by you with nobody behind, and then you're in the scramble drill after that, and then it's either a wide open 3 or a foul. It seems like every single time.
It's either angles or zone, right, Gary? It's either understand angles or play zone, right? Is it that simple?
Yeah, I think if you're bad fundamentally, even in man, in terms of containing the ball and doing all those things, you're still going to be bad in zone. I mean, you maybe not be as bad, but it's not like you can go out and play zone and just cover up all your defensive ills. It's not, you can still drive against zones. And the problem with zones is sometimes you have a problem with rebounding, and then giving up threes. I think that's the big reason why teams don't play more zone is they don't want to give up wide open threes. And there's very few teams out there to play zone anymore. I thought maybe they might try a little more zone today just because how good Wisconsin is against man, but they didn't, and they haven't really all year, so it's not a total surprise.
Second thing, real quick, before I get to my hypothetical for future, is Brock Harding. To me, I see flashes of how good I think he could be. Even, what is he, a sophomore, right? But he just seems to be playing at 120 miles an hour all the time. That gets him into trouble. He flies into the lane, stops, gets swallowed up. Shots are coming off really, really quick on his hand when he gets down there, usually not making them. Do you see the same thing with Brock? And if that's the case, is that something that can be coached out, or is that just inherently what we're going to be dealing with him for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's, they kind of call it a feel for the game, letting the game slow down, things like that. His size doesn't help. He's really small. But hopefully with experience, watching tape, some of that may come, but that's a really fine line. It's not an easy thing to coach, that's for sure.
And then the final. Oh, go ahead, Corey. Sorry.
Shane, I was just going to say, you probably heard there are rumors out there that Owen and Brock are both out of here at season's end. Those are rumors. I'm not saying there's legs to those, but those are out there. So just thought I'd add that in when you said, well, we got to deal with it for the next few years. Also, if Fran leaves, those are Fran kids, of course. There's no roster and insurance or assurance, right? If a coach leaves. So, but I agree with Coach.
And I guess this is where the hypothetical comes in, because I look at their schedule, how Iowa's played on the road, and I'm starting to think that there is a pretty good, better than even chance that Iowa does finish in the bottom three and doesn't even make this tournament, Big Ten tournament. Oregon, I mean, Washington may be the only win left that I feel decent about, and I'm not even sure I feel that good about that. So if that's the case, then
Washington just beat somebody like a drum somewhere that shocked me, and I can't. I think maybe out at home they beat somebody.
But if they end up missing the Big Ten tournament, and let's just say that they play at least respectively, they're not getting blown out by 30 points on the road, and they at least keep things close at home. Next year's lineup are people that, let's say Fran stays somehow, the folks coming in along with Dix and whoever may be coming back. What do you see as the just hypothetical ceiling next year for a team like that? It seems like we will be getting a lot more athletes in next year, provided Fran starts them.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I like the potential of some of their players. They definitely need somebody beyond Owen to give him some inside scoring ability, defense, things like that. And with the portal, things can change dramatically. I mean, rosters look at what Michigan's done. They were horrible last year. And with a couple of additions, they got a shot at winning the Big Ten championship. So and then somebody like Indiana, who everybody says had the best portal offseason, and those guys just don't mesh together and they stink. So it's kind of the sign of the times, college basketball. So you got to be careful in who you bring in, but rosters can be totally different. Like Corey said, they can lose some people, and then they really start scrambling. So, but I like, some of their younger players. I like, and I think got a chance to be even better, with work. And Wisconsin's a good example. You guys like the big kid today, Winter, didn't play very well, but he's had a huge year, and he was nothing last year. And the McGee kid off the bench, I think the announcers are saying he shot like 25% from three last year. He's shooting over 50 this year. So that's where teams become better, is in the offseason where guys improve. And I think Iowa's got some players that with a big jump could have a nice, have some nice looks, but it's a big if.
And real quick, you're right, absolutely right about what you said, Shane. I've said this before. I'm intrigued by the guys that Fran has added, but some of the guys he's added, so like the Johnson Arrigu kid from Miami. Okay, he's a carryover from Miami. Larinaga steps down. Excuse me, Iowa wanted him out of the during this past class anyways. He ends up going to the U. And Josh Lewis they got the other day, solid prospect. I just don't know if I'll be intrigued. I've been saying this all year before they got to 4-8. I'll be intrigued to see how Beth Getz and the administration handles this if they don't make the tournament. And right now, it does not appear. We can all agree it does not appear this team's going to make the tournament. I mean, I think if they win out, they're probably in as an at-large, because then that would put you at 12-8. But we're talking about 8 straight wins. I mean,
they have 13 the whole year.
Maybe 11. Does 11-9 get you in? That probably means you got to win at Illinois and home against Michigan State, because you have to have some marquee victories in there. So you probably got to beat both those teams and then rattle off 7 of your final 8 to feel good about where you are. But like you said, Shane, they may be looking more so at, hey, can we avoid the bottom 3 of the conference so that we can play in Indianapolis the week after the regular season ends. But I am intrigued by the athleticism. I just don't know if it's I don't think it's a last ditch effort from Fran. I don't think he thinks that way, but I'll be interested to see what the administration does. And, because if he moves on, or if they move on from him, do those, how many of those guys do they retain? And then, the culture of this program and the identity of it potentially shifts completely. And it seems like, at least in the past, Gary, you can probably attest to this a little bit, when coaches move on, oftentimes, especially if it's a bad ending, you have, and not the case of the women's program, but because it wasn't a bad ending, but if you have a bad ending to a tenure of a coach, oftentimes an administration goes in the complete opposite direction, right? I mean, we can pull up examples of that. I think what Nebraska just did, going from Scott Frost to Rule, I mean, they've kind of went back and forth with kind of nut job. You have Bo Pelini, and then you have whatever the guy who never said anything from Oregon State, whatever his name was, and then they go Scott Frost, and so I'll be intrigued to see like who would be on the administration's short list if Fran moves on. But I guess that's putting the cart ahead of the horse a bit.
A little bit.
All right, one last thing, because you brought it up, Corey, and I'm not familiar with it. If Owen were to transfer and anybody else, when's the next time the window's open and we would know about that? Is it after the season's done, or is it? Do you know?
I believe there's a window during the tournament.
I think so too.
It's
yeah,
like
during the tournament.
Yeah,
okay.
It's March, I believe.
I think it's when the regular season ends. I think then it opens up.
Yep.
Good enough, guys. I appreciate your time.
All right, thanks for the call.
Appreciate it. Good stuff. A couple questions here for Coach Close. One, Carrie says, can you ask Coach Close about what we should think about Courtney Eldridge and Tristan Spurlock getting invited to the Elite 75 Future Head Coaches Power Lunch? That was something that the University of Iowa touted, and sounds like quite an accomplishment. Can you give the average fan an idea of what this honor is, what it speaks to?
Yeah, that's a nice honor. I don't know much about it. I think it's great that the NCAA is doing those kind of things to help groom assistant coach to be head coach. But for both of them to be invited is a great honor. So I think it's I think that's something they should be very proud of.
How often do assistant coaches get? I'm just curious, and we're talking about Fran maybe leaving. We're just guessing on this, hypothesizing. But how often do assistant coaches get retained from staff to staff? If a head coach leaves, retires, gets fired, is there typically carryover there? And what percentage would you?
Not much. I'd say it's rare. You might get some administrative people on staff that might, like that director of basketball operations or somebody like that. They may hang on, but as far as the assistant coaches go, I think you'd be lucky to see one stay on, because most guys want to bring their guys that they coached with before, and that's understandable.
The reason I asked that question, it seems like a lot of people are excited about the impact Tristan Spurlock's had on recruiting, and even Courtney Eldridge at times. And hey, Matt Gatens, because he's an Iowa guy, whether Fran McCaffrey or not, he was committed to the previous head coach. So it would be interested to see where those guys disperse, if they disperse, if Fran were to hang it up or be asked.
It sounds like all three of them would have, legit chances of hooking on somewhere else if that were the case.
Yeah. Folks, I want to give you some insight into our sponsor. This is RTI Threads, and if you have not seen their website, this is it. This is actually their Cooper DeJean line. If you click on men's clothing, you can go down to their officially licensed Cooper DeJean Coop shirt. How many O's do we have here? Enough. We'll just leave it at that. Select your size, your Eagles, your pro Cooper DeJean shirt. The OAB CIG alum set to play on his birthday in the Super Bowl. Again, check it all out. You can visit cd3-store.1rti or simply click the link in the description, rtithreads.com/NIL, and then you can search all these great athletes, including Josh Dix, who was our player of the game today. Josh Dix finished with 13 points, 5 of 12 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. He's our RTI Threads player of the game. All right, official box score. Just want to run through a couple of things here, folks. We have time for another call if there's a person out there that didn't get into the line initially. 515-635-1601. Again, you can join via StreamYard. Iowa gave up in that first half to the Badgers. They gave up just let me pull up the first half. I had second half up. Okay, first half gave up 3 offensive rebounds to the Badgers, Gary. Second half gave up 9. So tell me what changed from half 1 to half 2, because that's a pretty big differential.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's a real good question. Yeah, I guess she's, they maybe put an emphasis on that, and that's, I don't know. That's a bad stat though.
And how about first half? Wisconsin, unorthodox, turns the ball over 6 times to Iowa's 2. And you look at the second half, Wisconsin turns the ball over 3 times to Iowa's 7.
Yeah, it was definitely a tale of two halves. That's what I said earlier. They could have had have a 10, 12 point lead, and now the game's totally different. And I think they had chances to do that, but they didn't. And now and then Wisconsin played a much better second half, which good teams do.
How good is this Wisconsin team? I know they're top 25 right now, and they've had some ups and downs, especially maybe before the calendar turned. But
they're interesting. They really have not beaten anybody. They really, the teams that they played that are ranked, they've lost to. But they haven't lost anybody they shouldn't have lost to. So they're right there. They play a road game at Michigan State and a road game at Purdue. And that's really the only 2 tough games they've got left. They got some games at home they could possibly lose, but they don't lose at home very often. So if they win one of those 2 games, which they could do, then they got a chance to win the title. I mean, they're right there. Now, those are not easy places to play, but I don't think either Michigan State or Purdue are lights out like they have been. I think they're very good and maybe could be great, but I think they're beatable. Now, they may not beat them, but I don't think it's impossible for them to go in and win one of those games. And if they do, then I think they got a chance at really making a run at the race. They can really shoot the ball. They're hard to defend.
All right, we're gonna answer our call here, but unfortunate news just coming in, and I appreciate Kyle Huesman, our friend over at HawkeyeReport.com, keeping us in the loop on this. Former Iowa women's basketball forward Ava Jones announced that she's been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a type of cancer. Jones, of course, medically retired from the program prior to the beginning of the season, and people will recall her story and the brutal accident that occurred down in Kentucky prior to her getting on campus that unfortunately took her father's life and severely injured Ava and her mother. And I just keep saying that story, it's not gone away. I know she's no longer with the program, but there's a popular country song out there right now. Gary, are you a country guy?
No.
Okay. Well, hopefully this line resonates with you. And it's from a guy named Drew Baldridge, who had a big wedding song that went viral. But he's got a new song called Tough People. And one of the lines in that song is tough times make tough people. And there's some truth to that. So we're thinking of Ava Jones and her family, a lot of difficult things that have happened in the last 5 years that you just can't draw up. So best wishes to her and her recovery. All right, let's go to our call. Let's see. We got our phone line hooked up here. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
He's lost for words.
Hello, you're on the air.
Hello. I have a question for the coach.
Okay.
And that is, Coach, could you tell me, like, if you were to put it into percentage, what percentage of Iowa's defense being so bad is like the coaching philosophy and scheme versus the athletes that they have there?
That's a tough question. And the reason why it's tough is you're not around there every day to know, what they're doing, how much they're working on it. It's like what anybody says is what's emphasized is usually what you're pretty good at. And I don't know, I'm not privy enough to know what, how that follows. But as Corey's alluded to, I think it's a cop out to say that you can't play defense unless you have great athletes. I just don't. I don't believe that. You may not be top of the line because of that, but you can play respectable defense. So I would say it's probably. I don't know. I'd say probably. I really don't have an idea because I don't know how much they emphasize. But they've got some. They've got some inherent weaknesses that if they're not scoring, then it puts even more pressure on that end of the court and makes it tougher to win games. So that's a real good question. I'm sure I wish I could give you a better answer.
Well, it does feel like we have a pretty good sample size, and the defense has been struggling season over season for quite a while in some of the things.
I think if you look at the second half of that game, and you look at the just one area, you look at the quality of the 3-point shots that Wisconsin got versus the quality of 3-point shots that Iowa got, it isn't even close. I mean, it's not even close. That I can't remember a shot Peyton had that was not completely guarded. Nothing wide open. I'm certainly I missed a few, and then down at the other end, I saw a lot of open shots. Now they missed them. They missed more than they normally do, which kept Iowa in the game. But it wasn't because of great defense. It was just because they missed them, which that's the risk you run of shooting a lot of threes, and that might knock Wisconsin out sometime down the road if they hit a cold spell in a game and they could be gone. That's the risk you run relying on the three. But I saw Dix coming off of screens. I saw Sanford coming off of screens, and there's somebody right on their tail, not giving them much of an open look. And those are tougher shots, and those are lower percentage shots, and a big reason why some go in and some don't.
I think I just say this, and I know maybe I'm a little biased because I watched Wisconsin score 116 against Iowa here about a month ago. I think this Wisconsin team, the way they play, they could get to the Final Four if everything's clicking. If everything's clicking because of the fact that they have a go-to big guy in Crowell. They have young budding guys. You brought up Winter. They got 3-point shooters. They actually score points now. And if they lock in on the defensive end and on the glass, consistency, maybe that's the biggest question. Does it carry over game to game? But they got Blackwell and Tanjay that can score basically at every level. They got Klesman who can shoot threes at a really high clip. I know he's had some ups and downs. I think this team could be a dangerous team in March.
I think they're going to go as far as their defense. Their defense has been inconsistent. And it was at times today in the first half. I think Iowa could have scored quite a bit more with better finishing around the basket. I think they did have a few open threes in the first half that they didn't make. But they clamped down in the second half. I think that's as far as they will go is whether they continue to prove on that end. And like I said, don't run into a day where they just get three happy and don't shoot well. That can happen, especially in a tournament where it's one and done. All of a sudden you go, 6 for 30 and you're out. So that's they really rely on the 3-point shot, and that can be a problem if they're not going in. But like you said, they've got 6-7 guys who can all make them. I mean, it's not like you can play off any of them. They all can make them.
Right. Anything else, caller?
Yeah. So, Coach, when you're watching the game from a coach's eyes, is there anything that you see consistently with like player rotations, how the ball's swinging or how players are moving? It's a head scratcher for you that you see as like just something you find odd or interesting or problematic?
With Iowa, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at times they get a little stagnant, with a little bit of over dribbling and things like that, not getting the ball swung from side to side. But offensively, they're hard to, they're hard to turn down. They're a really good. They've always been a really good offensive team, and I don't think that's changed a whole lot. They're not shooting the ball as well as they can, and I think losing Freeman's huge. I mean, you just when you lose somebody like that, that's a blow. I mean, that's last year I came down to the Wisconsin-Iowa game at Carver, and he was the best player on the floor that day, and a big reason why they won. And with him out of the lineup, it really hurts. It's hard to overcome that.
Corey, for you really quick, could you just tell me, because I'm a little bit late to the show today. I mean, have you heard anything in terms of Fran leaving?
No.
Are you hearing
I'm not.
Are you hearing anything from
No.
the inside or anything that we wouldn't know about?
Well, we're going to bring Tom Caker, the Hawkeye Report, in for a second. He certainly works on the inside more than I do. But no, I have not heard anything. I know there's rumors out there about a couple of players potentially leaving, and I've been speculating about Fran's future just because of the obvious with his kids and, Jack's graduation and, where Fran is with his career and 2 straight missed tournaments and the new AD. I think there's lots of reasons to speculate on it. But no, I have not heard anything that's given me indication that he's looking to leave.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. I'll get out of the way here.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for
Appreciate
the call.
All right, let's bring in Mr. Tom Caker to HawkeyeReport.com live from Carver. Tom, welcome. Good to see you.
Hey, Coach. Good
Hi,
to see
Tom.
you.
How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So, Tom, fresh off Fran McCaffrey's post-game press conference, I'm sure disappointed Fran. This is a game that I'm sure the players really wanted for a number of reasons, and they're dealing with some injuries. Being down Owen Freeman doesn't help when you go up against a really good big, and Wisconsin has one.
Yeah.
I want to start with one thing specifically. That's the status of Drew Thelwell. I know he returned in this game after appearing to sprain his ankle. He's obviously a tough competitor, and he wants to be out there. Did we get an update on what his prognosis is?
Did not, other than he's pretty sore, is what Fran said, and that was pretty obvious. He's still limping around, so boy, you wonder if he's going to be available on Wednesday, even with his ankle the way it was sprained. I was amazed he came back in the game, but he kind of just, he's a tough kid. He wants to play. It's his last year of playing college basketball. He wants to be out there and helping his team. Coach, you mentioned something about Peyton too, and it was something that Fran kind of hinted at, because as you know, as a coach, you can't directly criticize the officiating, but he said something to the effect of a player with Peyton's resume should get a little more respect when he's out there on the floor, kind of implying that he's getting fouled and a lot of star players might get a whistle or two to help them out. He is getting guarded tighter, and that's something that's happening with him and Josh, especially with Owen out. I mean, those are the 2 top guys on the scout, and they're going to try and take those 2 guys away as much as possible, especially because now Iowa just doesn't have a post guy to throw it into. There's no post threat. There's no guy to dump it down there to draw a double or anything like that. So it's a lot of drive and kick and a lot of mid-range. It's a different offense now without Owen, and because Owen commanded the defense to come on it. Because if you try and guard it one-on-one, he's going to probably score a bucket or get a foul on you probably 75% of the time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you can, when you don't have threats, you can play farther off them. And so the driving lanes are cut down, and it makes it a lot more difficult.
I want to ask you about, 2 things. First of all, Tom, is Cooper Koch done for the year?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
He's going to take a medical red shirt.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, that's they have not announced that, but he's taken a medical this year.
Okay, so that I think that's good news, frankly, because why waste his freshman year? And I know kids don't typically stick around for 5 years anymore, but his dad was a Hawkeye. I think his dad played at Iowa, didn't he, Gary?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good player for us.
Please don't take me seriously. Please. All right. No, I want to ask you about Mulvey, because these last 2 games, it feels like he's given them good energy early, Tom, and then they just kind of go away from him. Is it a stamina issue?
Yeah, I think it's a stamina issue that he has. Because I agree with you. I think he's pretty good out of the gate. I think he's an excellent screener, and I think he does fairly well on defense. But his screening can open up Josh Dix and Peyton for some shots, or at least to get free, to potentially get a look. And I it's second half of games, he sort of disappears, just playing time wise. So I kind of wish they would get him out there a little bit more. We also saw in the post game some very visible frustration from Price Sanford. Dropped a little bit of an F-bomb in the post game, which is unusual. And he apologized right after he goes, sorry I said that. But he said he wants to bleeping win. So, I think there's some frustration there. It was odd to me that he didn't get back into the game in the second half until about the 12-minute mark.
Yeah.
I thought that was strange, given the way he finished the first half, scoring 11 points and leading the team in scoring. I thought he would be in there at the very least at the under 16, but he did not get in there earlier on, and I thought they would try and get him going, just keep heating him up, and they didn't do that. But Fran may have wanted to try and get some of the other guys going too, and particularly Peyton, because Peyton didn't shoot it real well tonight and just never got in a flow. But again, that could be part of it. Is he's just being guarded?
Being guarded
at a really physically challenging level. I think
Yeah.
I think Fran would agree with physically challenging level.
Yep. They ran a set play for him. I think it's the only three wide open three he got. And he made it. And then I think if you look at the other six, I think there's somebody right in his grill.
Yeah.
Those
And
are tough
that
shots.
one, and the one that he made, I thought was, he just can't get in his natural motion sometimes. It was really flat and kind of lucky to go in. And I think you're seeing that with Josh Dix too. They're just they have to rush their shot because guys are in their space so much, trying to get those shots up.
Yep.
Shot selection continues to be something intrigues me, because this has always been a program under Fran McCaffrey, Tom, that's really prides itself on giving players the green light. And I think that can be your best friend or your worst enemy as it relates to a player concept. And I think right now, at times, it's working as your worst enemy, especially without Owen Freeman, without an interior threat. I know it's maybe hard to get in transition as much as you'd like. But as I said earlier to Gary, quick shots. Fran's even compared quick shots, missed shots, to turnovers. And Iowa doesn't turn the ball over a lot in live game action. But it seems like especially Peyton and Traore today, Seydoux really took some bad shots. Has Fran brought up shot selection recently?
No, but I asked Seydoux after the game about if he came out with kind of more of an aggressive mindset, and he said he felt like he had to today to come out more aggressively. So I think some of that was just trying to be more aggressive, but also, he did try to play make a little bit, but I thought he missed I think he missed Riley one time when Riley's guy hedged out, and Riley was kind of standing alone under the bucket if he just dumped a bounce pass down there, and he tried to take a shot there. And Peyton took one where it was kind of an off balance three. God, I can't remember what time it was. It was in the first half. It might have been with about 5-6 minutes left in the half, and it was almost like an air ball. I think it might have barely grazed the rim.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's the first time we've heard someone say Peyton Sanford took an off balance three.
Yeah,
that's not a new thing, Tom.
But after he shot it, he hit himself in the head and he went out of the game. So he knew that he's forcing it, and he just wants to win. And he's trying to do too
Freeman,
much.
they're feeling like they're even more so.
Because when you get down by 5, it feels like 15 for Iowa right now, because they don't have, Fran's teams have almost always had a post guy that they could go to over the years, be it, Luca or, even Keegan, Philip Bracha a few years ago, Owen now.
Ricky.
They've had some guys that they could go to and at least dump it down there and let them do something. And right now, they just don't have anything down there. Elijah tries to be that, but, when he got it down there low, he ended up throwing up an air ball from about 5 feet. The ball just kind of went out of his hands. So,
Yeah.
it's just he's gotta, it's just
Yep.
that's they're a donut team right now. They just don't. They got a hole in the middle.
My last question, and if anything else before we let you slide, Gary or Tom. Tourney hopes. I said earlier to Gary, I think this team might have to win, barring a run in the Big Ten tournament, which is not guaranteed to make the Big Ten tournament, but barring a run in the Big Ten tournament, I think they got to win 7 of their last 8. Maybe you sneak in if you win 6 of your last 8, but 7 of your last 8, and I think 2 of those wins have to be Michigan State at home, Illinois on the road, because they don't have exceptional wins in the resume. Am I right, or are we in agreement on this, Tom, or how would you edit that statement, I guess?
Yeah, we're almost into run the table territory at this point, because you got to put some wins together to get to, if they could get to 500 in the league, I think that might get you in the conversation. But right now, where are they sitting? 4-8? Is it 4-8 now?
Yep.
I mean, so you gotta, you can afford to lose 2 games the rest of the year.
Maybe.
And probably have to do well in Indy to get there. And it's going to be work just for them to get to Indy at this point. Because they've got to hope, because 2 of the teams that are below them, I think, are Nebraska and Northwestern, and they have to play there at Northwestern and at Nebraska yet this year. So that is the challenge ahead for Iowa, is that they just have to figure out a way to win some games. I think they probably have to get to 6 wins to feel secure about getting to the Big Ten tournament and at least participating in the top 15.
Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. Tom, we always appreciate you being here, and travel safely back to the Quad Cities. I don't know,
Absolutely.
Is there ice outside? Is it
No,
icing?
it was snowing. It was snowing a little bit, but I think that's over with. So I might have to dust my car off for the first time this year. Not a lot of snow this year, which is a good thing.
No, it's unreal.
No, I'm just fine with that. So, Tom, safe travels. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Take care, Tom.
Thank you, sir. All right, wrapping things up here. We got one final person on the call line. Tyler says, is there a way forward for Fran McCaffrey's regime after this season? I can't see a way forward for him. Well, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
You want to wait? You care to weigh in on that, Gary?
No, I'll pass. That's all speculation.
All right. That's all speculation. I have weighed in on it. So Tyler, you've probably heard my 2 cents. Aiden says, how many players leave this offseason? Well, Peyton's a senior. So barring something crazy changing with the NCAA eligibility, he is gone. And of course, let's see who else is done. I believe Evan Bronze will be done this year. Drew Thelwell, again, unless something changes with eligibility rules, he will be done. And is that it? Well, Riley, see, here's the thing about Riley. It's going to be interesting to see, because I think he's probably going to move on. Maybe not of his own accord, because he's got a year left because he redshirted. This is year 4 for him. So he could come back an extra year, but, would Iowa have him back? So that's where we're sitting currently. There was something I wanted to add, but, man, Lodgy Dembele is so slow, Gary. He is so slow. And I mean that, because maybe I feel a little bit more at ease saying this, because I've been very critical of the Sanford boys, but Lodgy is so slow for a 6'8", really a guy who's not a true 5. I don't know I think his natural position would be the 4, but I almost think he's a little too thick to be a 4. I think he's like 250, 260, somewhere in there. He's a guy. I'm going to be curious to see what he does, what Iowa does with him during the offseason. Because his development has not it's not gotten to where it needs to be after, almost into year 2. Let's go to what I believe to be our final caller of the night as we wrap up Wisconsin's win over Iowa. We've got Corey here waiting on hold. Corey, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you guys.
Hi, Corey.
Thanks for being here, Coach. I'm in a lot of agony. I slipped a disc in my back getting up from the couch last night. Anyway, but I wanted to see First off, my prayers go out to Ava Jones. I cannot believe she's got to go face this now. Terrible. It almost like these people that go through trauma and their bodies are exposed to that. Sometimes they're subjected to cancer, it seems like, because of all the trauma. But prayers to her and her family. But anyway, looking at the way the two teams finished the game, I have a pet peeve with Iowa, and it seems like we just keep jacking threes, even when we haven't shown no indication that we're going to make one. And we take bad threes on top of it. And it's like, if you look at Wisconsin at the end of the game, they were driving the ball. They were going to the hole. They were getting free throws. The games, and I don't have this documented, but the games that we've won or come back near the end of the game, aside from one game, I think, we started going to the hole. We didn't just keep jacking threes when they weren't working in the first place. And now you're getting covered. And what's your take on if your team isn't making threes and they're being fairly well covered, what's going to be your message to the team and the timeouts, and what are you going to focus on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the things we always mention is the highest percentage three is one that comes from the interior out. So a post feed, kick back out, drive, kick, things like that. And if you're getting threes in that realm, your percentages are probably going to go higher. So I think that would be the first thing that would look at, that we've got to, okay, let's touch the post and make a play. And if they all sag in there and take it away or whatever, then you kick it out, and then that's a three that you want to take. So I think you're always looking at the quality of threes that you're getting within your framework of your offensive philosophy and things like that. So I agree with you. I think Wisconsin, and I'm sure they said it at the half, so we've got to attack the basket more, get some fouls drawn, get them into the penalty, and then if the threes open up off of that, we'll take them. And I think for the most part, that's what they did. They got the free throw line more. They're a real good free throw shooting team, and continue to get pretty good looks from three. And so their offensive efficiency was much better in the second half than it was in the first.
And, just looking at this game, first off, I want to credit this team for their effort.
No doubt.
And the defense really for the first half for sure, and even going into the second half, I felt like the defense was good. Or better than it's been, I should say.
I agree with that.
And it just makes you think, were they physically starting to wear down and not have the energy to play defense, turn around, play offense? And to me, I asked the question, should they be rotating in more guys? You look at the kid, like Kingsbury comes in there and gave him a few good minutes. He scored, or what do you get, a putback? You got a rebound.
Yeah.
And he's playing good, solid defense. He turned guys away. He was guarding even the post a couple times there. It seems like bring more players in and get more energy into this defense and keep that defensive intensity up, because it was working. And the other question I have is, their most potent defense has been when they've done a 3/4 court press and they've done some trapping, or they double up and trap on those picks. They've gotten really good turnover opportunities off of those. And it's like, why wouldn't they, go back to that? But to me, what felt what was fun for me is to watch Seydou Traore making some steps forward, hitting shots earlier in the game. Now that they went away from him later, but he's so active on the defensive side. He brings so much energy. And wouldn't you say that he's got a good looking shot? He's got the potential. Some of them started to fall. I think it's just a confidence thing, but his fundamental jump shot is a good looking shot.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, no, I'm surprised he doesn't make more. To tell you the truth, and I think you're right. I think it's more of a confidence, experience factor than anything.
Yeah, so I just think that's a positive. And, there's a lot of doom and gloom here, but to me, that was a real positive today. And just seeing a Kingsbury go in there and get some useful minutes. Let's see some more of that. Let's start growing these guys. If we're not going to make the tournament, well, let's get some of these guys in there in some crunch time. They're proven positive contributors. Let's give them some time.
Yeah, I thought
So
Kingsbury was good. I was a little surprised he didn't play a little bit in the second half, but it's a fine line because you obviously want to win a game and you feel like it's slipping away. Do I go to somebody that's inexperienced, or I go to the guys I believe in, and we're running out of possessions and things like that? It's a tough.
But wouldn't you? I want your take on this. If you've got a tired team, what's affected more, your 3-point shot or your ability to go in and just drive it to the bucket? Which is more reliable when you're tired, as this team may have been?
Yeah.
And what's
Yeah. Well, you'll probably settle for threes rather than drive if you're more tired.
it just
Um,
seems like the 3-point shot is more affected when guys are tired.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the big thing with the threes was their defense in the second half was much better. There just weren't very many open looks, and like Corey said, when they were rushed, and those are lower percentage shots than the ones that Wisconsin was getting at the other end, where they're just sitting there and lining it up. It's a huge percentage difference.
And if our guys could get wide open looks like that, my question is, half the time we don't even use the pick. We go the other direction. And I don't understand that either. How effective is that? What's that all about?
Yeah, well, they'll tell you, usually you want to force the offensive player to the pick so you know what's going on and not let him refuse it. But they just don't have as many offensive weapons anymore. They're limited offensively, and that's why their points per game has dropped off. And you take, what was on average in 15, 16 points, you take that out of the lineup, that's huge. I mean, that's hard to make up. And you don't have to, they put 5 guys out there and maybe 2 or 3 of them you don't even have to really guard, and you just clamp down on the other 2. It makes your defense a lot easier.
The Hawkeyes falling to the Wisconsin Badgers. Final score 74-63. They'll be back in action Wednesday in a must-win game. Almost every one of these is going to be must-win games, especially against an unranked team, but it's on the road at a difficult venue. Scarlet Knights are very talented, brought in a great recruiting class. Any keys for Iowa to be successful in Piscataway?
Well, they got those 2 dynamic players. I think they got to get off to a good start. Rutgers played very well the other night and almost beat somebody good. I can't remember now. I was watching it. So they're going to have to get off to a good start because that place can be a problem if you don't. But
was it Illinois? They played Illinois.
It was Illinois. Yeah, they almost beat Illinois at Illinois or at their place. Those 2 guys at the top of their lineup are, they're considered lottery picks, which is, just goes to show you how hard it is to win with freshmen. They got 2 lottery picks in there at the bottom of the league. So obviously those 2 will be a handful, but be nice. I think they'll get more open looks again at Rutgers than they got today. And so they're going to, as I said in the beginning, I think they're going to have to make 15 threes a game to win, especially with Owen out. I think they're going to have to be well into the double figures with threes made. What did they make today? They probably didn't get into double figures today.
Today they believe they made 8. Let's see here. They made 8.
8. Yeah, they need 12 to 15 to win the game.
And I'm looking through here. Okay, yeah, 8. So I 12 or 13. That's going to be hard, especially when you play. How many games on the? I think. Well, maybe it's 4 and 4, but they got to win on the road. They haven't won a single road game all year. That's I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. Northwestern, I know, has really struggled on the road, but that's incredible.
Let's see, Northwestern lost their best player, so they're kind of in the same boat as Iowa is. They're playing hard, and they dang near beat somebody at home. They gave Wisconsin a great game at home, and they played somebody else really tight.
Well, they're well coached.
Yeah,
we know
that. But without Barnheiser, they're limited too.
Gary, thank you for the compliment here. We appreciate everybody being here for this show. Benjamin in the chat says Gary Close is the man.
Benjamin.
Appreciate that, Benjamin. And my final question to you is the best segment of all. Gary Close's Super Bowl spread. So tell me what is on the docket for Super Bowl Sunday in the Close household.
I don't even know yet. We're going a little more low key. It's just going to be the family, which is fine with me because I tend to get a little excited and scare my friends. You wouldn't believe that, would you?
I wouldn't, but no. Hey, you're an Eagles guy.
I told my kids I've been alive over 68 years. I've seen the Eagles in the Super Bowl 4 times.
Yeah,
and they've only won once.
Right.
So this doesn't come around very often. So we got to take advantage of it.
It's hard to get there. Yeah, exactly. What I was going to say. It's hard to get there. And the fact that they've gotten there 2 of the last 3 years, it feels like there's pressure. And there's pressure from a number of standpoints because a lot of people just want them to dethrone the Chiefs. They just don't want the Chiefs to win again. And so
this is the best team they've ever had. If this is the year to beat them, this would be it because they're solid on both sides of the ball. It's unfortunately there's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes on the other side, and that makes it a big challenge.
So you have no idea what you're going to eat tomorrow?
I don't. I think we might be getting Jersey Mike's.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting choice. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have some things before that, but we're going to go with the Philly cheesesteaks and the Hawkeyes.
We're gonna have chili again, which is a regular thing for Super Bowl Sunday, and probably make some homemade guacamole. Ooh. Avocados are on sale at Hy-Vee right now. I'm giving them a free plug. 49 cents an avocado. So
we'll have a lot of avocado dip.
A lot of avocados, a lot of guacamole. Cyhawk C Money, yes, cool. That's the call, folks. If you've not done so, be sure you get your Cooper DeJean Eagles shirt via his RTI Thread store.
I bet there are a lot of Hawk fans rooting for the Eagles tomorrow.
A lot of Hawk fans. There's a lot of Chiefs fans up here, but I think
sure. Yeah, I'm sure. That's probably the closest team. Yeah.
And it's Cooper DeJean. He's turning, is it 20? Well, he can't be turning more than 23, 22, 23, somewhere in there on Sunday. He turns 23 on Sunday. So
him and Barkley have their birthday on the same day.
Oh, Barkley too. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. How old is Barkley now? Is he pushing?
No, he's like 28 or 9.
To say he's not 30 yet.
No.
Yeah. Well, he's had an unbelievable year.
Unbelievable
year. And what a decision to let him go if you're the Giants. Anyways, folks, get your RTI Threads Cooper DeJean shirt over at rtithreads.com/NIL. Click on Cooper DeJean.
I may have to get one myself.
You should. You absolutely should. And speaking of bad deals, you and I have not got a chance to talk about this. I'll just throw this one more thing out to you. You know I'm a big Mavs fan. One of the most ridiculous trades in NBA history took place here a week ago. I will say this, as mad as I've been, and as I'm almost a closet Laker fan because I can't root against Luka Doncic. I think he was done dirty, and it's horrible in every way, shape, or form you can imagine. But how about this? Kudos to AD. It's not his fault. Anthony Davis makes his debut in a Mavs jersey today. They're playing the 3rd or 4th best team in the West in the Houston Rockets. And first half, the Mavs go into the locker room up 17 with 24 points from Anthony Davis in his debut in the first half. So what a start for AD. And 9 of 13 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, and 13 rebounds in the first half.
Wow.
You can't draw that up. So I think he's playing with a little.
What a great trade.
So far so good. But anyways, I'm a Mavs fan.
Why are you a Mavs fan?
I got family in Dallas. That's not why I'm a Mavs fan. I always loved Dirk Nowitzki. I grew up watching.
Cowboys fan?
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Worry not.
That's maybe the last time on the air if you were.
Although the ownership for the Cowboys is looking very similar to the ownership of the Mavs right now.
Oh, my Lord, yes.
I was a big fan of Mark Cuban. I think he did a lot of really good things as an owner, as a basketball decision maker, and obviously now it's a family from Vegas running the ship, and along with Nico Harrison. So I'm not in favor of the trade. Love Luka Doncic. I think it was horrible, but I'm rooting for Anthony Davis to have success. And they're not even healthy right now. They're down a couple of they're down Lively for one at the 5, and Anthony Davis is a really good player.
I think it's amazing how many NBA players get hurt. It's unreal.
Yeah, it is amazing, isn't it?
1 year Wilt Chamberlain, I'm from Philly, and he played for the 76ers. 1 year Wilt Chamberlain averaged more than 48 minutes per game.
48 minutes per game.
He averaged more than 48 minutes.
More than 48, and he didn't get hurt.
Didn't get hurt, didn't foul out, and he played in a couple overtime games. He never went out of the game, never got hurt. It's crazy. I think they play too much. I think they play too much in the offseason, and I don't think their bodies can take it all. I don't know what it is, but there's so many people hurt. It's crazy.
It's funny
LeBron
you say
doesn't
that.
get hurt.
Right? Yeah, he put up. Did you see those numbers the other night? He put up
That's crazy,
ridiculous. Speaking of, you just said injuries. As I look down at my phone, I get an alert. Mavs starter PJ Washington will not return due to an ankle injury. So it just doesn't. It doesn't stop.
I think the other reason is they're making so much money that they can't afford for them to be.
So I think
run
that's
the risk of getting hurt even more.
Right.
And so they don't let him play. I mean, like Joel Embiid, he wakes up with a sniffle. He doesn't play. They're paying him $30 million a year. They don't want him. That's crazy.
Folks, I'll be back on the air live Monday following Iowa, Nebraska on the women's side. Another big game for the Hawkeye women who have rebounded with 4 straight wins. They'll take on the Cornhuskers in Pinnacle Bank Arena Monday. And then, of course, live men's post-game coverage Wednesday following the Hawks and the Scarlet Knights. Gary, always a pleasure. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday.
You too.